And my restoration does not limit itself to isolated individuals. It radiates outward into families across generations, through entire bloodlines, rewriting legacies that were on trajectories of destruction and redirecting them toward trajectories of purpose and abundance. I want to address the way you have been thinking about your future, because the lens through which you have been doing it needs to be replaced. You have been looking ahead through the lens of your most painful experiences, which means everything in front of you appears tinted by the color of everything behind you. That is not vision. That is projection. And projection is a terrible navigator because it can only take you to places that resemble where you have already been. I am handing you a new lens, one that is calibrated to my promises rather than to your past, one that resolves the blurry uncertainties ahead into shapes that, while still unfolding, are clearly good. Through this lens, the challenges ahead look different. They are not disasters waiting to happen. They are training opportunities designed by someone who wants you to be strong enough to enjoy what he is giving you. Through this lens, the people ahead of you look different too. They are not potential sources of disappointment. They are assigned connections, each carrying something you need, and needing something you carry. Through this lens, even your own reflection looks different. You are not a collection of scars. You are a monument to survival, and survival is merely the prelude to the thriving that begins now. Abandon the old defensive postures, the chronic worry, the reflexive pessimism, the habit of bracing for the worst, because experience conditioned you to believe that hope is a setup for disappointment. Those protective mechanisms served a purpose in a season where you possessed nothing else to lean against. But that season has concluded. Continuing to operate from those postures now is like wearing combat armor to a celebration. The armor may create an illusion of safety, but it will physically prevent you from embracing the person standing in front of you with open arms. And I am that person standing in front of you, arms wide, offering something that armor was never designed to receive. I am extending to you a fundamentally different way of existing, not a life emptied of all difficulty, because difficulty is the training ground where faith develops its musculature and endurance acquires its lung capacity, but a life in which difficulty no longer authors your identity, no longer governs your emotional weather, no longer dictates the parameters of your inner peace. A life in which you encounter hardship from a position of deep-rooted security rather than a crouch of anticipatory fear. A life in which the outcome of every situation is already settled in the hands of the one managing it. Even when the intermediate process is obscured by fog and uncertainty, I am inviting you to dream again, not the cautious, hedged, carefully managed kind of dreaming that you have been practicing out of self-protection, where you only allow yourself to imagine outcomes mild enough that their failure would not devastate you. Real dreaming, the uninhibited, full-color, expansive kind of dreaming that you engaged in before disappointment taught you to keep your expectations small. I am granting you permission to want things again, to envision a future that excites you rather than merely fails to terrify you, to imagine outcomes so good that your rational mind would dismiss them as unrealistic, because the things I am planning for your household exist well beyond the boundaries of what your rational mind considers possible, and faith by its very nature operates in a territory where reason has reached its limit and departed. The seeds of faith you deposited into hostile soil during seasons when absolutely nothing appeared to be growing were not consumed by the barrenness. Every prayer that seemed to dissolve into silence before reaching its intended destination was actually being collected and stored in a place you cannot access with your physical senses. Every act of faithful obedience that the world around you neither noticed nor rewarded was being meticulously recorded in a ledger that I maintain with absolute precision. Every instance in which you chose to place your trust in me, when every scrap of visible evidence argued you were being foolish for doing so, was contributing to a harvest that is now ripe and ready. And the harvest exceeds what you sowed, because my economy rejects the principle of mere equivalence. I do not return measure for measure. I multiply, I cascade, I overflow. What is approaching your household will so thoroughly exceed the boundaries of what you projected that you will find yourself searching for vocabulary adequate to describe it. The provision will outstrip your most optimistic financial projections. And when that moment comes, he does not lecture, he embraces. That moment has come and my arms are open. This is where my power begins its most visible work. At the exact boundary of your limitation. Where your strength meets its end, mine takes over. Where your understanding crashes into a wall it cannot penetrate, my wisdom finds the doorway that was invisible to human eyes. Where your resources evaporate like water in desert sand, my provision flows from sources you did not know existed. I have been waiting for this intersection between your inability and my sufficiency. Not because I enjoy watching you struggle, but because the fullness of what I want to give you requires hands that are empty enough to receive it. As long as you are gripping the things you thought were saving you, your hands were not available for what I was bringing. Now they are, and I am filling them. What was breaking you is becoming your breakthrough. I want you to let those words descend past the surface of your intellect and settle into the deeper places where fear has been making its home for so long that it started paying rent and acting like a permanent resident. Let them reach the corners of your mind where worry has been constructing its case against your future, building arguments out of past failures, citing evidence from seasons that are no longer relevant. Let them wash over the wounds that have been festering in the dark because you did not know how to clean them and were too afraid of the pain of exposure to let anyone else see them. Those words are not wishful thinking. They are not motivational slogans designed to make you feel temporarily better before reality sets back in. They are a description of what I am actively accomplishing in your life at this precise moment. I am visiting your house. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, not in some vague spiritual sense that sounds beautiful, but means nothing practical. I am entering the tangible, everyday reality of your existence with a power that dismantles every structure the enemy has spent years constructing against you and your household. I have eyes on the curse that was spoken over your family name by someone who had no authority to speak it, but whose words took root because no one knew how to uproot them at the time. That curse has been cycling through your family like a hereditary illness, showing up in different forms across generations, manifesting as financial struggle in one decade, and relational breakdown in the next, and health crisis in the one after that. The people in your family tree who suffered from it did not understand what they were dealing with. They thought it was bad luck. They thought it was simply the way life treated people like them. They accepted it as normal. It was a spiritual structure that had been given permission to operate by words that should never have been spoken. And I am dismantling that structure today. Not partially, not temporarily, completely. The cycle ends. The pattern breaks. What has been repeating for generations stops repeating now, because the authority of my presence in your household exceeds the authority of any curse, any spoken word, any generational pattern, any spiritual agreement that was made by ancestors who did not know what they were agreeing to. I see the pattern of loss that has shadowed your family, the way promising things arrive only to be snatched away before they can establish themselves, opportunities that evaporate, relationships that show promise and then collapse, financial gains that are immediately consumed by unexpected expenses, as if the money was never really yours, just passing through on its way to someone else. That pattern is not coincidence. It is orchestrated theft, and the thief has been exposed. I am cutting off the supply lines that have been feeding that cycle of loss. I am posting a guard over every good thing I am bringing into your life, so that it remains, so that it grows, so that it produces fruit that sustains you and your family for the long term. The spirit of heaviness that has been settling over your home like a persistent fog. The one that makes everything feel harder than it should. That turns simple tasks into exhausting orals. That makes laughter feel forced and joy feel performative. I am lifting it. I am clearing the spiritual atmosphere of your household, the way a strong wind clears smoke from a room. What has been suffocating your family's capacity for happiness is being removed, and in its place, I am establishing a climate of peace that does not fluctuate with external conditions. This peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of a confidence that surpasses the problems. A settled knowing in the core of your being that the one managing the outcomes of your life has never once lost control of a single situation. Let me tell you what I see when I look at your future, because I need you to understand how drastically different my view is from the one you have been constructing. You have been projecting your current struggles forward, like someone pointing a flashlight into fog, and concluding that the entire road ahead is shrouded. You have been calculating your tomorrow based on the mathematics of your present limitation, adding up what you lack, subtracting what you have lost, dividing your remaining hope by the number of times you have been disappointed, and arriving at a sum that feels devastating. But my calculations do not work that way. I do not extrapolate from what is, I create what has never been. I specialize in making new things emerge from exhausted soil, in coaxing abundance out of scarcity, in building futures out of fragments that human logic would have discarded as unusable. The very circumstances that seem designed to bury you are being repurposed as the foundation on which I am constructing your next season. The pressure that was meant to crush you has been compressing you into something dense, solid, and immensely valuable, like a diamond formed in darkness, shaped by pressure, revealed in brilliance. Your home is going to become a place of refuge, not merely for your own family, but for others who are wandering through their own desert and need to see living proof that my glory still transforms households. The arguments that once defined family gatherings are being replaced by conversations marked by understanding, patience, and a grace that none of you earned, but all of you desperately need. The financial strain that has been extracting the joy from your daily existence is being addressed by a provision that originates from no human source, follows no economic model, and is not constrained by the limitations of any paycheck or budget. I am routing opportunities toward you through channels your mind has not conceived, opening connections that your social network could never have facilitated, positioning resources in your path that will arrive at the precise moment they are needed, not a moment too early and not a moment too late. These provisions are not rewards for perfect behavior. When you stand in the power I provide, you are not engaging in pretense. You are accessing the authentic, tested, limitless strength of the being who maintains galaxies in their orbital paths, and yet notices when a single sparrow falls, and yet counts every strand of hair on your head. Walk into the unknown with the settled confidence of someone who knows the one walking beside them. The unknown is only frightening when you face it alone, when you face it in the company of the one who holds the map, the one who built the road, the one who already inhabits the future you are traveling toward. The unknown transforms from a source of dread into a source of anticipation. You do not need to see the entire path to take the next step. You only need to see the hand reaching for yours. And my hand is always reaching, always extended, always available, always strong enough to grip you when the ground shifts beneath your feet. Not because the terrain ahead has been cleared of every obstacle, or because you can identify the destination on some visible horizon. Move forward because the one whose hand is on your back has already surveyed the territory you are approaching. And I give you my word that what waits for you there justifies every painful step that brought you to this point. The doors positioned ahead of you are not bolted against you. They are anticipating you, anticipating the footsteps of someone courageous enough to approach them, carrying the full weight of everything they have survived. And those approaching footsteps belong to you. Your family stands at the center of what I am executing, not at the periphery. When I said I am visiting your house, I meant every person living under that roof, and every person connected to that roof by blood and bond. The child who has been acting out is not just being difficult. They are carrying a spiritual pressure. They lack the vocabulary to describe. And I am relieving that pressure. The spouse or partner who has seemed distant is not falling out of love. They are drowning in their own unaddressed pain, and I am throwing them a lifeline through the change that is happening in you. The parent who was never able to give you what you needed is dealing with wounds they inherited from their own parents. A chain of unhealed pain stretching back further than anyone alive can remember. I see the entire chain, and I am breaking it not link by link, but all at once. The relational dynamics that have manufactured disconnection, the behavioral patterns transmitted across generations carrying unprocessed pain and unresolved grief and unnamed dysfunction. I am intervening in every single one. I am weaving my presence into the daily texture of your household in a manner that restructures how you speak to each other, how you listen, how you navigate conflict, how you demonstrate affection. The home you occupy is going to feel fundamentally altered, not because anyone rearranged the furniture or painted the walls, because the spiritual atmosphere undergirding everything that occurs within those walls has been permanently transformed by the establishing of my glory in your midst. Family members who have been emotionally distant will begin gravitating closer. Conversations that everyone has been carefully avoiding will finally occur, carried on currents of grace that neither party manufactured but both needed. The kind of healing that seemed permanently out of reach between specific individuals in your family will initiate itself in understated ways. In a gentler tone of voice, in an unexpected gesture of consideration, in the quiet miracle of two people occupying the same space, without the customary tension saturating every molecule of air between them. I am the God whose specialty is restoration.